Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another wonderful tasting with the Virtual Tasting Society. Today, we're excited to welcome a brand out of Baltimore. They are creating some really awesome American single malt whiskey and rum that we're going to taste today. Joining us is one of the founders, co-founder, Mark McLaughlin, and he is also the head distiller, if I'm not mistaken.
No, actually, my business partner Arch is the head distiller, so I'm the other guy.
You're the other guy. Okay. What do you do for Old Line?
So, co-founder, and I run sales, finance, all the lawyer stuff, all those sorts of things. My business partner runs production.
Awesome. Very cool. And we're going to need $1 million.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. We're excited. We have 6 expressions in front of us, some of your original and some of your finished products, and even a sample of your rum. But before we get into all that, please tell us a little bit. You already started telling us a little bit about yourself. Tell us more. Tell us more about the brand and what order we should line these up in.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before I start, what time frame do you like these to go? Just so I know, kind of, how
We
much.
don't normally have a set end time. We just go with the flow, and as long as everybody's having fun, we keep going.
Perfect.
Whatever
Awesome.
works for you.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So I'll start off. I don't want to go too long before we start sipping because that's the fun part. But to give you a quick primer, so me and my business partner Arch, we've been at this for about 10 years, actually 11 years, since we kind of quit our jobs to start this. But our background prior to this is that we were in the Navy together. We used to fly planes. We were navigators, weapon systems operators on a plane called a Prowler for about 10 years, and did that, became buddies, ended up both moving to the Baltimore area after we got out of the service, me for family reasons with my wife and him for career reasons with his engineering career. And I was in finance, he was in engineering, and either one of us was really thrilled with what we were doing, and decided 11 years ago that making whiskey sounded like it was more fun than what we were doing. So we quit our jobs to start a distillery with the idea of making bourbon and or rye whiskey. And bourbon, just for all the reasons, it's the quintessential American spirit. Rye, Maryland being a historically rye producing state, that was appealing as well, and we love both categories. And where we ended up taking a bit of a different direction is shortly after quitting my job at the bank. I was in Seattle for a distilling conference, knowing that I wanted to be a distiller and wanted to learn how to start one. And met a gentleman out there who was a Vietnam vet. I'm an Iraq vet. We just hit it off, and he was looking to sell his very, very small distillery near Seattle, which was 2,000 square feet tops, making whiskey in this little 60-gallon pot still. And they were making, he and his partner were making this amazing American single malt whiskey, which at the time, I'd never heard of an American single malt before, and I just fell in love with the product. And we ended up deciding, what, we love bourbon, we love rye, but this American single malt concept seems like it's got legs. So we jumped in, with both feet, and we've been at it ever since. So we ended up learning how to make the whiskey from Bob, buying the business and moving it back home to Baltimore, and then ended up setting up shop here rather. I'm in the distillery now. It's about 25,000 square feet. And then we've also set up production both here and also with Middle West Spirits in Ohio. So we've tried to really be at the forefront of this American single malt category. And I hope that we're one of the 5 or 6 that people think of with that. So
That's really cool. Middle West Spirits was recently in the news with their
yes,
acquisition. That's really cool. I don't know much about them. I don't think we've ever featured Middle West.
they're great. We've known them, so when we met Middle West, they had just transitioned from producing on a like 1,000 liter, so 300 something gallon, hybrid still into a bigger, 6,000 gallon fermenters, column still kind of process. And they've since upgraded that again into a much bigger. I think they might be the largest or one of the largest independently owned distilleries in the States. And we met them at a time where we were looking to make our whiskey on a larger scale, at a time where most contract production was buying kind of off a sushi menu, like, oh, you want bourbon? Here's bourbon A, B, or C, or rye A, B, or C, and you can you can buy this, and there's no shame in that. It's a very viable thing to do. But what we wanted to do is take this very unique thing that we had learned how to make and scale it. And they were the only distillery at the time that would let us do that. And it's been a dramatically positive thing for us. So we've been able to make our whiskey at a greater scale than our little, my 300-gallon pot still to my left here could never, ever do. So it's been a great relationship.
Awesome. That sounds good.
Where'd the
So
name come from, Mark?
The name Old Line,
Yeah.
Mark came from my parents, but then Old Line. So I didn't know this before moving to Maryland. So I'm a Boston kid originally. That Maryland is the state nickname is the Old Line State, and for most people, for those who know it, which many people don't, it's not like the Empire State or the Sunshine State where kind of everybody knows it. The Old Line State is not very well known, and those who do know it tend to think it refers to the Mason-Dixon line, which it doesn't. It's actually a really cool story in that in the American Revolution, the Battle of Brooklyn or Battle of Long Island, call it what you will. The short version is that Washington had the Continental Army in what is now Brooklyn in a place that was not very well defended. And the British started landing troops with the idea of ending the rebellion right there. And Washington immediately realized that he needed to evacuate his army, and he started to do so across the East River into Manhattan. But he needed to hold off the Brits for a certain amount of time to accomplish that. And there was a unit that was from Maryland that was well trained, well equipped, and at the right spot. And he used that unit to engage the British long enough to save the rest of the army. And they took 95% casualties. And by holding the line, so to speak, they saved the army. So Washington referred to that as his old line. And because they were from Maryland, that became the state nickname. And when we learned that kind of heritage as military guys, we love the connection. We love that it sounds like just an old whiskey name that's been around forever, and it just kind of fit. So yeah, it's an old Maryland thing that very few people know about. Sure.
very cool. We're excited to taste through this lineup. We have 6 expressions in front of us. Do you want to tell us what order we should go in? Most of us have 6 glasses in front of us, so we want to line them up.
Yeah. So looking at what we sent, so I think the order that I have them in your email, I'm going to stick with. So here's the rundown. So we have the flagship 95 should go first, I think. The ASM Navy Strength 114 next, and then the sherry finish, Madeira finish, Caribbean rum finish, and then the actual rum last. And there's a method to that madness.
Okay.
Are those labeled where you guys can?
Yep.
Awesome. And there's no perfect way to do it, but that kind of trends with what I think we should do. So to give you guys an idea of what we're doing here, as you guys get into our flagship 95 is our kind of leading offering, and it is what we're doing here at Old Line is we're making a single malt whiskey that's definitively, we hope, is definitively American in style. So we're not trying to recreate Scotch in America because we would lose, right? Scotch on every level, they've been doing this for hundreds of years. The Scotch category is so well established and well developed, and there's so many amazing Scotches out there that if we were trying to recreate what they were doing here in America, it would be a kind of a tilting at windmills. But what we want to do is take the concept of a whiskey made with 100% malted barley, that kind of old world grain concept, and do what Americans do and basically put an American spin on it. Think of like an IPA in beer. An IPA was a British concept, hopping a beer extra so it could survive the voyage to India from the UK. And, a British IPA is very, very different than an American IPA, which is a result of Americans learning of this and then just taking it to the next level, or to a different level at least. So we view our single malts as similar to that, in that we're not trying to beat Scotch at their own game. They're very good at their own game. We're trying to take single malt and deliver it to a bourbon drinker or a rye drinker who maybe that person doesn't really respond well to the Scotches they've tasted, but there's something there. There's a delivery of malted barley that can be very, very appealing to an American consumer. So that's what we're trying to do. So we do all, for the most part, all non-peated malted barley, and we age for the most part everything in virgin oak. So we're embracing the American style aging of that. For us, number four char virgin oak, and delivering a malt whiskey in a way that a bourbon drinker who he or she might not have thought they could like a malt can really respond to. So this 95, I think, delivers that very much. That's kind of right down the middle of the fairway. So it's 95 proof, very approachable. This is aged between 4 and 8 years. So it's a blend of ages, 4 to 8, in number four char virgin oak. And I'll pause there to let you guys take a sip and just see what you think.
What's the barley type you're using and the yeast?
So the yeast strain, actually, I didn't Arch, my business partner, to answer the yeast. We do disclose that it's not a secret. Some distilleries don't. I just don't happen to remember exactly what the yeast strain is, but it is a commercially available yeast that we get from Lallemand, which is a big yeast producer. So I don't have the exact name off the top of my head. The barleys, there's two types we use. About 90% of our mash bill is called a Copeland two-row pale malt. And then about the other 10% is a C120 crystal malt. For those of you who don't maybe know malt as well, speaking, there's a lot of caveats here, but essentially the grain going into the malt house is largely the same. It's unmalted barley. And when they put it in the malt house and they soak it and it starts to germinate and they dry it out, the way that they do all that has a dramatic effect on the flavor of the barley. So the 90% of our mash bill, the Copeland two-row, if you were to take a bite of that, actually, I may have some floating around here. Actually, I do. Hang on a second. You can actually see the one it's on my right. Over here, this is the two-row Copeland pale malt, and then this is the C120. These grains are almost identical when they go into the malt house, but they come out dramatically different in color and also in flavor. So this one tastes almost like grape nut cereal before we mash in with it, and this one tastes more like Raisin Bran flakes. And the difference is in that as they are malted and then dried out, there's a different level of sugar conversion and caramelization that happens from that process. So this is about 90% of our mash bill, and this is about 10%. And that is the baseline for almost everything we do. There's some exceptions, but that is the vast majority of what we do is this 90-10 right here. And if you guys pick up on any cocoa notes, dark chocolate, things like that, that's going to be largely from this 10% C120 grain, which is, I think, this is the same mash bill that we learned from Bob and Jim, and we haven't changed it. It's been one of the biggest gifts we've been given, is this blend of grains.
Yeah, I was going to say, as soon as you said crystal malt, your flavor profile made sense all of a sudden, just because that explains where all of that was coming from. And even at 10%, you're right. I mean, even if you went any higher, that crystal malt can just dominate.
It can dominate 100%, or is it Jason?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It can dominate. And also the other side of that, on the kind of cost of goods side, is that the alcohol yield for every pound or whatever we use, whatever unit of measure of this, is a lot lower than the alcohol yield on this. And the reason is that some of these caramelized sugars, these aren't kind of convertible to alcohol by the yeast anymore. So we get flavor, but we don't get ethanol. So the more C120 you put in, you get lower yield in alcohol, which at the end of the day is the commodity that drives the value of what we do, or at least drives a lot of it. So yeah, that can also be an economic factor as well. So what do you guys think of my feelings will not be hurt if it's not for you. By all means, it can't be for everybody, but I'd be curious to hear what people are feeling, if it feels more like a bourbon, if it feels more like a single malt scotch, if it feels like nothing in between. I'd be kind of curious to hear your thoughts.
I'm definitely getting the in between the bourbon and the single malt. It's got a little bit more heat that reminds me of the bourbon, but the flavor is all single malt. It's really delicious.
Thank you, Jane. And to that comment, not all by any means, but most or a majority of single malts come in usually in the 80 proof range, or 80, 83, 84, 85, 86. And being an American producer, we like a little higher proof. So I think that resonates with me, what you just said.
Yeah, I can easily see getting a bourbon fan to try it when they would be reluctant. Most of the ones that I know are not fond of single malts, let alone scotch. So getting them to try one, this would be a good one because it's kind of it walks that line.
Well, thank you. We found the greatest success in offering it as, hey, you want to try this whiskey? And oh, sure. Oh, I really like that. That's a single malt. Where if you say to a bourbon drinker beforehand, you want to try the single malt, there's already a preconceived notion in their head. So it's one of those things where sometimes getting the whiskey in their mouth and then letting them make their own decision and then telling them what it is kind of sometimes more beneficial to us, at least.
I agree with James. This definitely has a long, spicy finish, which I didn't expect for something at only 47 and a half. This got a lot of body and texture on it, so it's very enjoyable.
Thank you. Well, I think this is and Vadim, do you want me to drive the tasting, or do you want to do
Yeah,
it?
it's all you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, this is your
All right,
show. I'm
cool.
just here to administrate it.
Oh no, you guys are awesome. So yeah, let's go to the 114 then. So let's bring that the American single malt 114. Not to be confused with the Navy strength 114 at the end. Just make sure the Navy strength rum. So just make sure you have the whiskey, not the rum.
Yeah. How did you pick the 95 and the 114? Because that's pretty
Yeah.
damn close to cast strength, but not.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So two different ways. So the 95, well, I'll start with the cast strength and the Navy strength. So we have our labels, our primary labels. The 95 proof is this white label right here. And then I don't have one in front of me, but the blue label is our higher proof offering, which used to be cask strength. And what Arch and I determined over time is that we were often taking that cask strength, which is 124 to 128 maybe, and throwing an ice cube in it or putting a little water in it just to bring it down a little lower. And we found that that's where we really like to drink it. So we found that we loved it at that what was probably 110 to 120 proof range, that middle ground. And we're also Navy guys, and you don't see Navy strength applied to many whiskeys. You see the proof sometimes, like Old Granddad has a 114, Overhold has a 114 rye. So the number is out there, but no one calls it Navy strength. And being two Navy guys, we thought we love the proof on this, and we love the tie into our background, and also we had that cask strength already, but we really wanted our cask strength program to be a single barrel cask strength program, kind of like Four Roses. And so for all those reasons, we made our kind of general everyday high proof offering Navy strength. And then we opened up our portfolio at cask strength to be a single barrel. So whether it's a single barrel we pick or a store picks, whatever it is, that's where that kind of cask strength lives. So for the 95, we actually used to offer this at 86 proof. And we loved it, but we felt that it was the balance between approachability and flavor delivery was not quite right. We felt like it was extremely approachable, but that for a whiskey aficionado, there was something a bit missing. So we decided that we would look at a higher range. So we did 90 to 97.5 and 2.5 proof increments. And we decided that for us, 95 nailed it. We decided delivered the complexity and the kind of whiskey experience that a whiskey aficionado would respond well to, but also not so high that a newbie would be turned off by it. So that's where 95 came from. So with the 114 that you guys have, one thing that we get asked sometimes is this the same basic whiskey as the 95, or is it a different age profile? And it is the exact same. And we've experimented with the idea because certain whiskeys, what might shine at 86 proof or 90 proof might be different than what shines at 114 or 110 or 120. And we experimented with, should we do a different flavor profile for the flagship 95 and the higher proof? And for us, we determined that the same age profile at different proofs was beautifully differentiated, and we loved them both. So we kept it simple. and it's the exact same product. The only difference rather is the proof. And I tend to think it's a pretty noteworthy difference for me. On the higher end, the 114, I get a little bit more of the baking spice and the fruit, whereas on the lower end, the 95, I get a little bit more of the vanilla, caramel, toffee. But that's just me. You might find it different, but there's a very your palate is just picking up on different things at a different proof.
That's really fascinating. I kind of wondered if they were similar just from the flavor, but the nose is different and the finish is different on both of them
Very different.
just
Yeah.
from the strength. I mean, I got so much cocoa on the nose of the 114 that I wasn't getting off of the 95. And definitely more of that baking spice you mentioned.
And I love that it's just that the human palate, like different strengths, it delivers different flavors. So yeah, I'm glad you noticed a difference because I certainly do as well.
I mean, honestly, it's so cool that it's the same mash bill.
It
It's
comes out
just
of that same
stronger
guy.
or lighter.
Yeah.
It's just awesome that they're both so good. And that's the only difference.
Well, thank you. And what I think is cool for other distilleries that do have different profiles, that they figured out that for their whiskey, it makes sense to do different age profiles. But for us, it just didn't make sense. And they're both wins. So yeah, we love it.
I assume the wood used is the same as well.
It is, yeah. Everything's the same. So it's all number 4 char, Virgin American oak, 53 gallon.
So I think some of the difference might just be the extra alcohol may pull a different amount of things, especially like baking spice notes, out of the wood.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but in this case, not really, because it all gets harvested at barrel strength and put into a big vat. And then as it comes out of the vat, some of it gets proofed to 95, some to 114. So the actual proof in the barrel is identical.
Okay.
So your point has validity.
Well, I understand now.
Yeah. So it truly is, to Jane's point, just proof of the product. Yeah.
It's a pretty interesting difference. So
it's a noteworthy difference. Yeah. But your point is very, very valid. If that were the case, that yes,
but it's not. So
yeah. Well, as I said in I remember grad school, I often got the right answer to the wrong question. So.
Thanks.
Hey, you were talking about the old cast strength. It reminded me, I found this little tiny bit. So this is all I've got left of a bottle I got of yours in 2019.
Oh, wow.
Of the cast strength. And so I poured it for side by side, and they're completely different animals. But I think the biggest thing really is everything about the new one, everything is more rounded and developed. It kind of more is cohesive. Everything in this one, in the old cast strength, is really good, but everything is kind of sharper, and individual components. So the chocolate is all there, the spices are all there, but they're all just kind of aggressive.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, that was probably, I can't say for certain, that was definitely from at least a 30-gallon barrel, if not smaller. So yeah, I think you nailed it. Like that, when we started laying down barrels, we started laying down small barrels and big barrels at the same time. And every time we laid down more barrels, we did fewer small barrels and more big. So the idea was to just wean ourselves off of that kind of short aging cycle that we needed as a small business, and then into that 53-gallon ASB, 4, 5, 6, 8-year-old profile. And we had some great whiskeys along the way, but I couldn't agree more that the younger whiskeys are more punchy. They're more, the flavors hit you in waves. I agree. Whereas everything is much more kind of coherent and melded together in these ASBs. So yeah, I think you're dead on with that. And Jane, I agree. I'm a 1 cube kind of guy. People can poo-poo it, but I love it. So, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to say, it feels sometimes like I have trouble with high proof, so I don't mind putting it on a cube just because it gives me a chance to taste it as it comes down and find the spot where I know next time how much I need to put in it to make it to the point where I can drink it without it like blowing out my palate. So
100%.
It's nice to just actually be able to sip something and know that it's strong enough, but it's not so watered down that it's just, what's the point? So,
No, I agree. And one thing I'll do, and it drives my wife nuts, is that I'll pour, whiskey on a big cube, whatever it is, and then I'll just have the whiskey next to me and keep tapping just a few, little pour at a time, because I find that range that I want. I just want to keep it there, and then I'll inevitably drink a third of the bottle. But I love finding that range where, okay, this is what I want, and just keep tapping a little more whiskey on top and just keep it until that cube melts. Just keep it in that range. It's a lot of fun for me. So I guess let me look at my phone here. So next up we have, I believe, so we're moving into the double oak series. The next one up will be the double oak sherry finish. So before we go into this, the term double oak is something that, to me, at least as a consumer, connotes virgin oak twice. A Woodford Reserve double oak's a great example. Is virgin oak, and then that whiskey goes into another virgin oak barrel. So it's very oak forward. We actually don't use that term in that way. We were actually told by the federal government that American single malt whiskeys weren't allowed to use the word finished, which is crazy. It makes no sense. But once you get a no from the feds, getting a yes is very hard. So we had to stop using the word sherry finish and Madeira finish and things like that. And we used the next closest thing we could get to communicating to our consumer what was in the bottle was double oak. Okay, it's in 2 oak barrels. So for us, it's virgin oak first, and then that finishing barrel, which was ex sherry, ex Madeira. So it's really just another way of saying finish. It's just we're handcuffed as far as what we can actually put on the bottle for regulations. So the double oak series will be the next 3 that you have coming up. So the sherry is first. This is our longest running finish we've done. What you have right now is, I believe, it's Oloroso, I believe, and which has been mostly what we've done. We've done some PX with some success, but Oloroso has been what we lean towards. And for those of you who might not be as familiar with sherry, there's 8 or 9, not varietals, but styles, I'll say, of sherry. And you have, Pedro Jimenez PX on the sweeter, more fruity side. And you have, other drier ones. Oloroso typically falls into the middle range of being moderately sweet, but also kind of nutty as well. And to this one on the nose, this one reminds me of like holiday fruitcake. And I know holiday fruitcake can be divisive because you get the fruitcake in the mail from your great aunt and no one wants to eat it. But when you break it down and just think about it, it's molasses, cocoa, vanilla, brandied cherries. All these wonderful things are in that fruitcake. And this is what I get on the nose on this is just all those things, coming together. So everything we do in the double oak series, unless it's a barrel pick, is 100 proof. We found that 100 proof is just right down the fairway in the middle, and it's hard to go wrong at 100 proof. So we've stuck with that. And I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on what you think of this. This is I think our 8th iteration of sherry finish since we've been a business.
How long do you do the finishing for?
It depends. If it's the one I think it is, this one was about a year, but our finishes have gone as long as 3. We typically don't do much less than a year. I know 6 months to a year, I think, is kind of what most distilleries will do. We tend to go a little longer just because. But this one was, I believe, a year in sherry. And then the baseline whiskey prior to going in was that blend of 4 to 8. So minimum of 4 plus another year.
This is dried fruit from the Christmas tins my grandparents used to get every year. It's like, the weird little two-tined cocktail fork and dried fruits on one side and nuts on the other. That's what I'm getting off of this, is that not just the flavor, but that memory.
It hits you, right? I couldn't agree more. No, I love it. It's just when I had that realization of, in my mind, that's what it tasted like. It just cemented in there. And I think this is probably one of our more balanced finishes. What you'll find, I think, when we get into the next one, is that the Madeira comes across a lot more aggressive, and that's not, I don't think, a bad thing. It's just a different style. But this one is just so nicely balanced that, I just think it does really, really well.
Yeah, balance is a good word for this.
Thank you. Now we'll see what you think of the Madeira, because it might be that one's going to be more finish heavy, and the Madeira definitely shouts a bit louder than the sherry, in my opinion. I'll be curious to see what you guys. Which is probably a great segue. So look, that's the next one up, right? Yeah, Madeira is the next one up. So I'd be curious for you guys to try the Madeira finish, and see what you think. And
Are you using the flagship juice for all of these iterations?
yep, the same juice that would, if we hadn't put it in a finishing barrel, would have gone into the 114 or the 95 is exactly what we're putting in. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So to take that one step further, we're not doing a program where we try to match a barrel that was aging in virgin oak to a barrel in finishing, like to put those two together. I don't think we could do that. We'd be guessing. Maybe somebody who's been doing this for 50 years could do that. But for us, we found that if we take that product that otherwise would go, that we've vetted and prepared and got ready to be released as the flagship, putting that in the finishing barrel, we found to be a great way to do it. So yeah, it's that same base product and just put in a finishing barrel, and we let it do its thing.
And I missed. So what's the age statement on these?
So the baseline product going in is a minimum of 4. So, with the rules, we'll call it a 4, even though there's as much as 8 in there. And then on the sherry finish, another year. So 5 to 9, but call it a 5. And then the Madeira was same base that was finished, I believe for 2 years. I'd have to look at the exact bottle. But yeah, so 4 to 8 years as the base, plus another year or 2 in the finishing.
I've never had this, and I'm like, I hope these aren't like super expensive, because so far I'm like, yeah, 104.
Well, they're well, I don't know what. So we've tried to price our whiskeys alongside bourbon as opposed to traditional single malts, because we're making a style of whiskey that we want to appeal to bourbon drinkers. So most of our portfolio, there's some exceptions, but most is between 45 and 65 a bottle. So we don't go above 65 very often.
That's good to know, because I so far like them all.
Well, and thank you, Sandra. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we've been down the single malt road, and I find it interesting that I would not think Scotch in any world, unpeated any kind, and I don't know, maybe it's because we've been bourbon drinkers, and for us, when we got into the single malt, it was kind of through that bourbon route. So I don't know, we've just been doing single malt for so long that I guess I'm not seeing that people going, oh, it's a single malt, and maybe I'm just jaded, but
Well, no, I think that if your comment is about like the kind of excitement where people go crazy for the next new bourbon, like, yeah, we're not seeing that yet in American single malt 100%, but I think it's getting there. But we're having to fight our way into that kind of conversation. But for us, even if people were, if we had a waiting list to buy our product that we couldn't fulfill, I don't think we would change our price very much, I mean, if at all. Like, I'm not saying we'll never go above 65. Inflation will have to, and there'll be certain things we do that are just these rarities but our goal is not to squeeze every penny out of value out of our customers. That's not, that's no fun. Like, you want to like create a product that we make our margin and we're happy, and we give somebody, to put it a different way, I had this conversation earlier at an event tonight at the distillery that one guy was saying, he was talking about our rum. He's like, dude, your rum should be priced higher. I'm like, you know what? Like, man, dude, we're making money on it. Like, we're making our margin. It is a more than fair margin. And I would 10 times out of 10 rather have a person say, man, this is a steal, than have to think about, should I get that again? Like, fuck no. Like, make it a steal. As long as we're making our money and we're happy, and we are, like, we're fighting our way to profitability, but per bottle, our profitability per bottle sold is totally healthy. So I would much rather be in that range where you just say, you know what, no brainer, I'm buying that again. And that makes me happy. So yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a win-win, right? Like, I mean, if you're sitting here thinking about hemming and hawing about buying another bottle, then I'm failing. I think, you know. But now, if you don't like it, you don't like it. I can't control that, right? But if you like it and you're like, oh, should I? You know, there's probably a problem on my end, not yours. But yeah, so anyway, I'm very, very glad you like everything, Sandra. And I'd be curious. Now, you guys have all tried the Madeira. I didn't want to speak.
I just try. That is absolutely amazing.
That is one thing I didn't want to say it until you guys had a chance to taste it. But for some reason, oh, Jane, you like that? It to me, I get weirdly bacon and maple, and I don't know why on earth I get those two things out of this. And we've actually done. Hey, kiddo. We've actually done. You're on TV. We've actually done maple finishes before, and they've been great. But this Madeira tastes more like maple to me than what we've actually done maple finishes.
I've had maple finished. I would agree with that. And my first thought was a maple bacon old fashioned would
maple bacon. Oh, I couldn't agree
this
more.
beyond the world. This. I would get this specifically to make that drink.
And I never in a million years, if you had asked me when we first filled up these barrels, if you asked what will it taste like, I would not have said that. It's not at all. I was very surprised with where this turned out, and we love it. And so yeah, but to a previous comment I made, to me this is, and I'm not saying this is good or bad. To me, it is a very finish forward whiskey, whereas the sherry I think is a little bit more balanced, whereas this is a Madeira, on the nose, and that's it. Not good or bad, it just is. And our port finish, which you guys don't have with you, is very much the same. It is very much aggressively port, and people who love port love it, and those who don't, and that's that's fine.
I think it also helps that your back end of your whiskey is so strong and so at long finishing that you can do something as sweet as a Madeira, and that's on the upfront, and then all of a sudden the baking spices and the dryness of the malt itself are what kind of lingers. And so then you can go in, you can have another sip, and you don't feel like it gets too cloying, too sweet or whatever. It's like no, it goes through the little wave, and then now I can have another sip. And I'd almost be interested to see, since this handles that sweetness so well, like what PX would do, because I think it could handle a PX, whereas some single malts can't.
We actually have done a PX, and it did well, and we were we were not sure how it would do because Oloroso was tried and true. So yeah, thank you for your comment. Yeah, the PX actually did do well. We actually just got. I'm actually looking at them right now. We get a bunch more PX that we just got in that we're right now making sure that they're water or liquid type before we actually put our whiskey in them. We just got them a week ago. But
if I could ask, what was the proof? Because I've just found with PX finishes, the higher the proof, the better it is.
So the proof on the PX that we've done, unless it's a barrel pick, it's been 100. And we've it's 100 proof is kind of our run home to mama. If you don't know what to do, then 100 is the way to go. We just found it's hard to go wrong. Now, eventually, I think we might get to a point where we do it on a per release basis, like, oh, this one shines best at 107, this one's better at 92, whatever. But for now, we've just found that if we do 100, we're probably not going to go too far astray. But yeah, and then I think there was a comment I think I saw from Jason about why not both, as far as the Oloroso and the PX, I gather. Is that right, Jason?
Oh no, that was making fun of Vadim for not including the port finish in our.
I second that because he said port, and I'm like, and where is it?
By the way, Jason, you're not from Massachusetts, are you?
No, I'm not, but all my family grew up there. So
I've only ever met one other Dalrymple, my buddy's wife. So I just thought I'd ask. She's
Yep.
from Massachusetts, but yeah, you never know.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's the Madeira there, and I think what we have up next is the last two are going to be a little bit of a turn here. We're moving away from the wine tastings, or the wine finishes rather, into a Caribbean rum finish, and then the last one will actually be a rum. So
Yeah, like on the wine finishes, how many times do you reuse your barrels? Because you have such a extensive
Just the
wine.
once.
So that, I mean, if you're only using it once for a year, I mean, you got to be going through barrels like crazy. How many barrels of each wine type are you laying down?
Not many. I mean, I'm looking at right now to my right, there's kind of our finishing row, if you will. And I guess there's 40 barrels. I mean, not a crazy amount. And we're still a pretty small company. You know, we sell in Maryland, DC, and Delaware, and then ecom is really for the most part. So yeah, 40 or so right now that we deplete, we replenish, that sort of thing.
40
40
total
out,
between the 10 different finishes or 40?
yeah, yeah, total. And then out of
Wow.
about 2,000 barrels total. So
Wow.
most of which are virgin oak aging away, up to 9 years. With 9 years is the oldest we have right now, almost nine. But yeah, no. So we've been eventually we're going to reduce the number of offerings that we have as far as finishes and do them in greater scale. But we've been very, I'd say, deliberate about how we determine which finishes we think not only taste the best, but also are the most commercially viable. So a good example would be like Moscatel, I think was one of our best finishes by far, and we'll always make it. But we buy that one barrel at a time, right? Even though I think it's probably one of the best we have. Uh, you put it in the shelf in the market, and sherry sells 10 times faster because people know sherry. So there's that balance of what makes the product that we think is the highest quality, and also what people actually want to consume. So right now we'll be whittling down that the finishing barrels you see on our website. Some will come back limited edition, some won't. Some will be permanent. So we're kind of we've opened up the aperture in the past few years, and now we're narrowing it to the ones that are the most kind of the best, frankly. So yeah. Oh,
Interesting.
Bazooka. Who said Bazooka Joe? I saw that. I didn't see the name. I've heard that several times. I've never once gotten that myself, but you are not alone. I have heard a number of people say bubblegum, and so you're not alone. Whoever said that, I didn't see the name, but I've heard that comment before. Absolutely.
I want to thank him for that because I knew it was some kind of candy from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I
Yeah.
couldn't
Yeah.
I couldn't place it. And as soon as I saw that, because I'm going through
It's more like the wrapper.
ribbon candy or like some weird lemon thing. And then when he said that, I'm like, there it is.
Yep. It's
Thank you, Ryan.
the first time I heard that was probably like 3 to 4 months ago, and since then I've heard that at least twice. So yeah, definitely there's something there. Not something that I've my nose has picked up on, or I haven't made that connection, but clearly I'm not alone. You're not alone. So um, with the and that was on the rum or the Madeira that you were getting that.
The Caribbean double oak.
Caribbean rum. Got it. So to give you guys a little more info on this, so we at Old Line we import a blend of rum that is a blend of 7 to 11-year-old barrels that our importer, or excuse me, our blender slash importer brings in from the Dominican Republic, and we've been doing this for 8 years now, and we love it. It's a great rum. You guys will try it here in a moment. And the reason, well, a couple of things. We developed a rum blend that we wanted to be a whiskey drinker's rum, kind of like we want our single malt to be, a bourbon drinker single malt. Like, hey, what can we deliver to that bourbon and rye drinker that will really respond? Put a whiskey in their cabinet that they can respond to really well. And same thing with our rum. We wanted a whiskey drinker's rum, something that a whiskey drinker can reach for in the summertime or whatever, and really have all the complexity and character that you want in a really well-aged whiskey in a rum. And I think there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of amazing Caribbean rums that are really well-aged, but I think that many Americans, and I was one of them, haven't had exposure to them, right? So what we had this wonderful rum that we want people to try and really say, hey, rum is something we should look at as a category that is really kind of undervalued right now. So we bring that rum in. It's already aged 7 to 11 years when we get it. Some of it gets bottled right away. Excuse me. But some of that rum goes into our freshly emptied single malt whiskey barrels to finish, which produces a wonderful single malt finished rum. But also, equally importantly, now we have a rum-soaked barrel that we can put single malt in. So what you're tasting now is it's the American single malt whiskey aged in virgin oak and then finished in one of our Caribbean rum casks. And then the last thing you'll try is actually the rum itself. So, curious to know your thoughts. The rum finish, I think people who love it go bananas for it, and some people find it to be this kind of gray area between whiskey and rum that they're not sure what to do with. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts.
I just want to say thank you for giving back.
How so?
I was looking at your website and how you give back, to the Fisher House and Tailhook Society and Warrior Music.
Oh, thank you, Tony. Yeah, it's a no-brainer for us. I mean, and I wish we could do more. But yeah, we've been very, very fortunate to work with. I mean, Fisher House, they're all awesome organizations. Canines for Warriors is another one. And yeah, thank you, Tony. It's been no-brainer, easy to do for us. And yeah, we won't stop doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, Fisher House put one up on Eglin Air Force Base whenever I was working there, and right across from the hospital. So it's great for people with somebody in the hospital, stay there right across the street.
Yeah, well, and thank you, Tony. And to those who aren't familiar, to Tony's point, Fisher House is like a Ronald McDonald House for military. So yeah, to exactly what Tony said, if your loved one is in the military and undergoing cancer treatment or whatever, wounded or whatever it might be, and it's a place for the family to stay for free and be with that person. And a good buddy of mine actually just retired. I used to fly with him, and he had his rollout for his organization about a month ago here, which is called KFG Foundation, which stands for Keep Effing Going. And he went through colorectal cancer on active duty, and the KFG was what I guess a lot of the cancer patients text each other just to say like, "Hey man, like this sucks, but keep effing going, keep going, keep going." And he started a foundation. And one of the things that he commented when he had his rollout here, last month, was that Walter Reed was an amazing place, that the care was amazing, the quality of care, the people, everything. But he goes, he'd never felt so lonely because he didn't have his family there with him. And so the Fisher House, I can only imagine if you're experiencing that, just having that kind of place for your family to be with you is amazing.
It's interesting that I didn't quite get the Bazooka Joe off of it, although I got a similar note, but we're all waxing rhapsodic about various forms of vanilla nougat caramel candies in the chat. So they kept saying cowtail, and I'm like, what the heck is a cowtail? And I'd never heard
it's like a bullseye.
But I looked at a picture of it on, Google is my friend. And I'm like, oh, I totally know what that looks like. I just don't know it in that shape. And then we always had caramel creams, which is just like the big fat version of it with a little slice. So I'm like, okay. So that's what I'm going to use. But I get that for sure.
Do you remember bullseyes? They were like the caramel with the white middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think cowtails too. And don't quote me on this, but I'm 90% sure that the place where those were made is about 3 blocks away from here. It's called Getz's, G-O-E-T-Z, Getz's Candy.
Yeah, it is.
And Getz's is, I mean, I'm not kidding, less than 1,000 yards from here where they make all those candies. So it's kind of funny.
That's hilarious.
Well, that's got to be your next limited edition. You do a pairing with them. You team up with them and do cowtails and whiskey.
That's actually not a bad idea. That's actually more than not that's a great idea, actually.
I love that.
You get a bag of candies in your box. It's a VAP for the holidays. And you're supposed to give it to your grandma.
Yeah. Keep the whiskey.
Purse whiskey. It'll be purse whiskey. Grandma, you got any caramels? Oh, I got you some whiskey. I will say, so all of these have been different. They've all had their own character, but the one thing that I've noticed is the sweetness and the lingering spice notes that's been your through note on every single one. Like the Madeira at first sip was my favorite, and then it started developing into this like tobacco, kind of like a cigar note for me. And now I'm on to the rum, and again, it's interesting. It's all the caramel notes that everybody's talking about, and then it finishes with the spicy.
Yeah, to me, we get comments on the spiciness a lot as far as whether it's that white pepper spice or that bacon spice, and uh, my best estimate is that is almost entirely from the oak, whereas with the rye whiskey, so much of the spiciness is from the grain. There's a chemical called, I think it's eugenol, which is resident in oak, which has that kind of white pepper spice, and you have cinnamaldehyde and things like that. There's some things that give you the allspice. So yeah, that is very much a function of the oak. And to take it one step further, uh, more often than not on a bourbon, you'll have number 3 char, and we do number 4 char, which is only a matter of a few seconds in the charring process, but you get different flavors out. So for the number 4 char, the baking spice is more prevalent, whereas the number 3, the vanilla, is a bit more prevalent. So prevalent, excuse me. So it's just that char level of the barrel, I think, gives a lot of that spiciness.
Makes a lot of sense.
And has anybody tried the rum?
Before we get to the rum,
sorry.
We do have a tradition on the second to last pour. I see everybody reaching for a glass. They know what's up. Rita, Tim, Adam, come on back. For the newbies, all we ask is you raise a glass and you smile to the camera. We're going to do a quick shot. Not a shot, but a photo. There we go. Get some friendly faces smiling here. Adam, come back. I'm dragging my... There we go. We're going to do a toast to Mark and to everyone here. Thank you for being here tonight. Couldn't have done it without you. Hope you're enjoying the tasting and have a great day. And cheers, everyone. Got it.
And thank you for the hospitality. And again, I apologize for being a few minutes late today.
No worries. It was worth the wait.
Thank you. That's kind of you.
And you didn't nearly break the record for how late someone's been.
I like that. I'll take that as a win. So for the rum here, as you guys kind of step into this, it really is it's a traditional style kind of Dominican rum. It's made with molasses. And for those of you who may be possibly less familiar with rum, it's been an education for me, and I still know whiskey better than I know rum. But to me, if you were to tell me something was molasses based versus sugarcane based, I would assume at first that sugarcane based would be sweeter, just because in my mind, a spoonful of sugar is sweeter than a spoon of molasses. They're just very different. The reality is that sugarcane-based rums that typically come from former French colonies, Martinique's a great example, tend to be a lot more vegetal and funky and not the sweet rums that many of us are familiar with. And they're great for what they are. A lot of them are called rum agricoles. You ever see a rum with an RHUM versus an RUM? That RH is kind of communicating this is a rum agricole. And it's going to be a completely different animal than the rums that we know. And I don't get to vote on that.
Why not?
Oh, no, shit. Oh man, all right. Well, I just closed it. I'm sorry. Can you send it again?
Yeah, let me relaunch it. Hold on. Let me go back.
Sorry, man. I thought I figured I shouldn't jump in. This is it's a Dominican rum, molasses based. And like I said earlier, we really want this to be a rum that a whiskey drinker, when he or she wants something just a little bit different than whiskey, would consider throwing in their glass. And if y'all have never had a traditional daiquiri, which I hadn't until about 6-7 years ago, I always thought of daiquiris as that thing you get on Bourbon Street and have a horrible hangover the next day. A traditional daiquiri is just rum, simple syrup, and lime juice, and it is just it's just killer. And if you like this rum, and I hope you do, I'd say just be open to looking at other rums out there. Of course, I'd love you to be an old line aficionado, but I also think as a fellow whiskey and rum consumer, like if you like this and you didn't think you liked rum, just keep your eyes open because there's a lot of great rums out there. And, we hope that we're in your rotation, but we're certainly not the only good one out there.
I tossed it in the chat, but I think this is probably one of the best rums I've ever had.
Wow.
I appreciate that.
It's buttery, it's creamy. It's like the best vanilla cream bonbon you've ever had. It's that center with just like a little hint of the cocoa note on the outside with a little bit of caramel. I mean, this is just absolutely spectacular. And I have a half a dozen friends that are now going to have to try this with me. So,
Well, thank you, Jane. And also, one thing I'm very proud of is that there's no flavoring, right? So it's there's molasses, water, yeast, and a used bourbon barrel. The only thing we add to it at the end, and it's very minimal, is just a tiny bit of granulated sugar, which is called back sweetening. And the way I describe the way we do it, other rums add a lot more to make it sweeter, and which is fine. There's no shame in that. But the way we do it is much more like putting salt on a steak. It's just a very, very minimal amount, and it really doesn't make it any. If you had our non-back sweetened rum, it wouldn't taste any less sweet. I just think that at the 84 proof, it just helps the other flavors kind of bloom more. So again, it's like that salt on a steak concept. And but we love it. And then one thing that now that you've all tasted it, I don't want to throw out tasting notes till you have. To me, it tastes almost like an orange creamsicle, like that, the vanilla ice cream surrounded by the orange, popsicle when you're a kid at the pool. It reminds me of that quite a bit.
I do have to say that normally when I go to a rum tasting, I don't like the rum that they pitch for bourbon drinkers because I feel like I'd rather just be drinking bourbon. And, instead I go towards like a Ganya, like for say, still like weird funkiness in rum. But this one doesn't hit that I'd rather have bourbon note. You still get a solid like rumminess to it.
Thank you, Adam. No, that's I appreciate that very much. And even if people don't like it, like I appreciate that too. It's just, each person's got his or her own palate, but it makes me feel good that we're delivering something that is worthwhile to a whiskey drinker.
So you said, I know you don't use a lot of sugar, so you're not dosaging like diplomatic or some. Are you still putting it on the label?
Here it is. Favorite note. So I actually don't think we are, and it's not a deliberate choice. Well, I'm going to pick my favorite here before I lose choice. I always go with the same one. I'm sticking with it.
Madeira.
Actually, no, it's for me. Well, it's not a Madeira. For me, it's a 114, but that's just me.
Okay.
No, we actually don't put it on there, and it's not a matter of not wanting to share it because we always tell people about it. And I don't really know why we don't put it on there. I guess probably because no one else does. We figure like if we do it, we don't want to be the one that like wait, they're putting sugar in. Well, everybody is, man. And we're doing like 10% of what other people do. So part of it is we're very open about it in conversation. But no, we don't put it on there, which maybe we should. But a big part of what we do is being very transparent. So that's something maybe we should consider. It didn't even occur to me until you asked it. But yeah, and actually, we don't put it in all of our rums. So any rum that we have that's barrel finished. So we finish in our single malt barrels. We've done Madeira, we've done sherry and port. Those are all 0% back sweetened, and I actually like them even better. But yeah.
Can I geek out on rum a little bit?
Yeah, you might out geek me because I'm only
okay. So
I'm like a B- player in rum.
Okay, if this had been blind, there's no planet that I would have. And okay, let me start with I really liked it. So I'm going to start with that. I liked it. However, I will say I would never know that was a rum. Now, I do like agricoles. So I like weird stuff, but if you poured that, I would have no idea what it was, but I would never go to a rum.
Interesting.
And I've had, what have we had? Probably 40, 50 rums. We've probably got 30 on our shelf, 20 on our shelf right now. And I'm curious because this to me does not taste like a rum. So where are you getting it from? You said it's a blend.
It's a blend.
Can you go more in depth into what this is?
Well, I will go as in depth as I know, and the reason I say that is that with the whiskey world, you pick up a bottle of rum, and if you want to know whether it's American or Scotch or whatever, with a little bit of digging, you can figure out where there's enough transparency out there where you can kind of read between the label and figure out where it came from. The
Right.
rum world is much more murky. So what we know, well, actually they prefer that we don't share this, but we actually have an agreement where we're allowed to. Our blender buys from a place called Oliver and Oliver, which is a blending house in the Dominican Republic. And
Okay.
Oliver and Oliver produces some of their own stuff, but they also are a blending house where, presumably Brugal and other places, when they have excess barrels they don't need, will sell to Oliver and Oliver. So our blender, and he and his wife, they're both our blenders, go down and they buy the barrels on our behalf. So there's going to be a varying mix per batch of what it is. So they're targeting a profile, not a recipe. So, so we can assume that probably any Dominican distillery that makes barrel aged rum, there's some of that in ours at some point in time. But one thing that we do not know, they won't tell us specifically, and the way our blender described it or explained it to us is that Brugal, for example, doesn't want the world to know that their rum might be in other products, right? So there's a lot of NDAs in place. So we know the pedigree, we know the age, we know, molasses babe, we know all these things. But as far as who made it, I will never know, at least to my knowledge. The farthest I've gotten is it's a good quality Dominican rum. Do you want it or not?
So it's basically the MGP of the rum world.
And
I don't mean that to be.
No.
I know how that sounds, but
it does not sound bad at all. No, but I don't think so. I think it's different in the sense that I think a better example would be, oh gosh, because MGP is making all their stuff, right, and it's good.
But you understand the point.
I 100% agree. Yes. And from the perspective you're saying it, then yes, yeah, I think it certainly is. The difference there is I think that MGP is a lot more accessible. Whereas I don't think I'd ever get close to these stores of rum if Luis, our blender, wasn't the one buying them. So there's kind of like a gatekeeper, that whereas MGP, there really isn't that as much. It's kind of like you want to buy them, you can buy them. There's a little bit more of a good old boy network to get to these barrels as well, which we're lucky to have.
And again, this is probably 100% just my palate from having gone down the rabbit hole of rum. I mean, I literally once, my tasting notes on a rum was burnt grass and vomit. And I said, and I mean that in a good way. So that's like my,
yeah.
You understand? That's kind of like my rum.
Sure. Yeah.
World. So for me, this is like, it's hard for me to like place this as rum.
Well, and along with that, so I'd say the theme I get from all of these are that you guys have a unique gift to take out the thing that keeps people from trying that particular category, but without just wiping it out. So, getting bourbon drinkers to drink barley, to drink malt is always hard because a lot of them just don't like the taste of barley. But you've managed to not get rid of it, but to put it enough into the background that that's not what they're going to focus on with your single malts. But as a Scotch drinker, I can pick that up and tell it's malt still. And then with the rum is I can tell it's rum still, but it's the thing that would keep rum drinkers away. You've managed to pull those down and instead enhance some of the other flavors. So that's what you're focusing on instead.
But well, thank you, Jason. And yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that. And no, I take that as high praise. I mean, I really can't say anything else. I appreciate that. One way I described it is like I'm not a DJ, but you imagine that the big board that DJs have in front of them with the dials, this goes up, this goes down. I like to describe it as that our single malt and a bourbon pretty much have the same dials, and they're just delivered at very different levels, right? So it's all familiar flavors. There's nothing crazy out there. It's just delivered at different levels in a way that a bourbon drinker can understand and appreciate. So yeah, I think that's just a different way of saying
your gateway drug.
Yes, I'll take it. I'll take it. First one's free, Jason.
I could really see myself enjoying this on a cocktail, and my sister's been into tiki cocktails a lot lately, so I know she's getting a bottle of this for sure.
Well, if any of you, not to shamelessly promote Old Line, but if any of you guys do want anything, we can ship to 41 states from our website. So no matter where you are, for the most part, with minimal exception, and we do was a free shipping on 3 bottles or more. So if you guys do like anything you found on here, pretty much, I think all of it, I believe all of it is available on the website. So just so you know, it's there.
Just FYI, the whole point of this tasting for you is for you to shamelessly promote Old Line.
I know.
That's why you're here.
I know. I'm a horrible salesman though, because like I don't know.
That's the best salesman for us.
I never want somebody to feel like, I should buy this. Like I want you to love it and then buy it when you're ready, but I don't want you to ever feel pressured to do it. So that's why I'm the best.
We've had people order things during the call and it arrives while we're still on the call.
That has happened. That has happened. He nearly made the presenter cry. It was awesome.
That's awesome. That's got to be like Drizzly or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So who is your distributor? Because we were looking, we're down in Irvine in the bowels of South Orange County, and we checked and we can't find it.
Yes, we're not distributed. We're only, as far as distribution, we're Maryland, DC, Delaware, but we do the e-com, so we can, in California,
3 bottles or more. So
3 bottles or more, free shipping, and if it's the way it works is with our partner. What they do is they do $20 flat, whether it's 1 bottle up to 12, but 3 or more, Old Line pays it. So
Swedish order from you guys, and it magically will show up at our door.
If you go to our website and you can say, I want to buy a bottle, and then it will, through FedEx or UPS.
Okay.
Show up at your door. Yeah. And it'll be fulfilled via a company in DC. We can't legally ship from here, but we have a partnership anyway. But yeah, as far as you're concerned, you go to our website, click, and then it'll be to you hopefully within a week.
Okay. Wait. So olive oil is showing up at my door?
No, actually, well, usually what we used to do is ship olive oil. This is actually weirdly legal. So yeah, this will actually be, it'll say adult signature required, and it'll be very legit, believe it or not.
Okay.
I was gonna say, if you're shipping it from DC, there's no sales tax. Are we saving on sales tax?
That's a good question. I thought there was a DC sales tax. Maybe I'm.
So DC doesn't have a sales tax, but a lot of times if you're doing e-commerce, it'll charge you the sales tax.
Oh, yeah, that's such a good point. I don't know. I would assume that it will charge you something, but hopefully we'll be pleasantly surprised and it won't. But I think it probably does charge you your local.
I'm playing with your website right now. It charges me local.
Okay, yeah. Unfortunately, that's probably why they get away with it, because that's probably why the states kind of allow them to do it.
Are you doing it through Big Thirst? Big Thirst is
yeah. Big Thirst is great.
For sure. Okay.
Yeah, you know them?
Yeah, I mean, they're one of the big ones for sure.
Yeah, so Big Thirst is great. We've worked with them for a year and a half, and they've been.
Andrew, if you get the port cask, make sure to bring it to the next time we hang out, for all the flack I got.
Man, I didn't mean to put you in the spotlight there.
I know, the bus that I've been just pushed in front of. This is great.
Well, to Vadim's point, or to his defense, we emailed back and forth on what to send, and I'm like, hey, what do you think of this? Like, all right, looks good. So I kind of left him. I set him up for failure on this one.
Yeah, I don't think it was failure. I think you teased it, just like a good drive. Nice. Just like I told Jason. You know what? This was just setting you up for a round 2.
Well, guys.
Sorry. Put it in the poll. What do you think was the group's favorite bourbon? Whiskey. Just
what do I think?
Yeah.
I think probably the Madeira.
Okay. All right. Let me see. Best whiskey. View results. Share results. That was a very confident answer.
Wow. Look at that, man! I was right.
Yeah. All right. Well, if the Madeira took it out of the whiskeys, what about best of all? Do you think Madeira still held its own?
Oh man, I'm gonna say yes. Although I think I'm probably gonna eat these words a little bit. That the rum took a little ground, but I think the Madeira still. I think Madeira has 60% plus.
Okay. The results are in. You are
Ooh,
pretty
all right.
much dead on both polls. Good job. You lost a couple to the rum, but still held
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it was good.
Well, I'm glad that people enjoyed what they tasted. That's the name of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say I've done probably, I don't know, 300 tastings, and this is one of the first times where I would buy everything.
Wow.
I'm extremely excited, never heard of it. And our bourbon, and yes, I'm going single malt with bourbon, is getting very, very low. We have everything else. So I'm like, we need to like build everything back up. And I think this might be where we go.
Love it.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear that. That's high praise, and there's so many great whiskeys out there that we're glad to be one of them. And thank you for even saying that. And I hope that if it finds its way on your shelf, I hope it serves you well.
It will find it will this week find its way onto our shelf.
Thanks,
Make
Sam.
sure you post a photo
For
of it.
sure.
We love seeing that.
Oh, definitely.
And that's the beautiful thing with discovering a brand that, you'll go hang out with your friends in OC and you'll be the only one that has this bottle. You get to introduce them to something new. It's so hard to do that out here with the whiskey nerds. Everybody shops at Can Ale and High Time. So bringing something that you discovered and showed it, it's awesome. So, Mark, thank you for being here and sharing these with us. We really appreciate your time.
Oh, you kidding me? Thank you for your time and apologies for keeping you guys waiting. And just very grateful for your time and attention. And please, reach out anytime. We can be helpful. If you're in Baltimore, please do come by and love to see you. And Vadim, just let me know, man, if I can be helpful with anything, just how to reach me.
I appreciate it. Yeah, Baltimore is known for rye. I noticed you guys have one rye expression. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, so we do. We set out originally to make bourbon and rye, and then took on this whole single malt path. And the one reason we went, as much as we love rye and love bourbon, so the fact that we don't make them doesn't mean we don't love them. It's just that we kind of picked our swim lane. And but the reason we did the one is that we actually had an event tonight at the distillery with a local brewery called Monument City. They're about 2 blocks away, and they do a 51 rye beer, they call it, and it's 51% malted rye, 49% malted barley, and it's their kind of beer way of tapping into the Maryland rye whiskey tradition. So we decided a few years ago during COVID, just messing around. They had some extra beer that they weren't going to sell when COVID kind of sprung up, and it already had hops in it, but we distilled it, and we're like, let's just see what comes out. You're going to waste. It's going to get thrown away anyway. Let's just distill it and see what happens. And it was, the hops were very prevalent because when you distill hops, they're very, very, forward. But there was something behind that we're like, hey, there's something here. So then we proactively worked with them to have them make their wort without the hops, fermented it here and distilled it into a high malt rye whiskey, which is pretty rare, and it's lovely. We loved it, so we've been making it in relatively modest amounts, but we've been doing more and more each year. So it's 51% malted rye, 49% malted barley, aged in virgin oak. For this one was it was 30-gallon barrel for 3 years. So it's still got some more. We've been releasing it little by little, but I think around 4 or 5 years will be its sweet spot. And in my opinion, ryes do really well on the younger side. They're a little more, I'm not say punchy, but vibrant, right, and spicy. And you want that kind of liveliness in a rye. So yeah, it's a very unusual rye. It's a little bit spicy, but not very, and very malt forward. And it's just for us being a malt whiskey company, it seemed like the perfect rye to do.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah, thank you. We sold last year. We sold it the first time we released it. We sold it out in 2 hours, which is first time we'd ever done that. And then, but it was a very small amount. And then we released more of it this year, and it lasted, maybe 2-3 weeks or something like that. There might be a bottle on the website. There's been none here for a long time, but there may be a bottle or two left. I think we sold it out on the website too. But yeah, if not, it'll be back in the spring.
Awesome. Anyone have any other questions while we have Mark? I'm surprised Jason's don't have any question.
I'm drinking.
You know, the usual, we think of them 5 minutes after we sign off, so.
For sure. Well,
Well,
thanks.
hey, yeah. No, sorry, please.
No, go ahead.
No, I just can't thank y'all enough. I know y'all have a lot of things you can do with your time. Life's busy, and the fact that you spent the hour and 20 with me, I'm grateful, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Cheers.
Sleep well, guys.